Hey everyone, welcome to my tier list of the Swarm Champions. From a player who has reached the endgame, Max Anima, here are my thoughts on all the champions I played. Before I get to ranking them, I just want to make it clear that all champs are liable and can pop off if you get that perfect build with them. On my listing, there will only be one S tier and one D/F tier champion. Starting off with one of the first characters that you'll get access to, and probably one of the best, is Jinx. Her kit contains the highest mobility one can offer. There are many power-up cards from Yumi's quest that scale damage with speed. Because of this, she is one of the highest DPS champs in the game. Her basic ability is amazing at getting her speed, while also clearing many weak mobs, giving you the chance to escape at dire moments. Her ultimate is the boss buster you need, with both of these abilities having a small cooldown timer. Jinx in my eyes would be S, but there is one champion who surpasses her. Jinx is put at the A tier. Seraphine. Next to Jinx, Seraphine easily takes a spot by her side, but slightly being worse than her overall. A character of all trades, her basic ability shields everyone in her radius while giving out a speed boost to escape moments when you're surrounded. Her ultimate stuns all surrounding enemies while doing damage, and with a slight catch to make her really unique compared to everyone else. Her ultimate shockwave goes around the entire map, making some quests like break all vases as easy as clicking one button. Her DPS doesn't outperform Jinx, but with her passive being projectile based, she is also an easy A tier hero. Next up, we have Leona, the first hero who will bring us down to the middle grounds. Leona focuses mainly on being that hard tank to kill that struggles with dealing out DPS. Her basic ability has a low cooldown rate and is one of the better basic abilities at surviving. Same with her ultimate. When those huge swarm waves come, the haze left behind from her ult will give your team a safe spot to play around. Like I said earlier, her damage output is her downfall, because although you'll make it to the boss plenty of times, if you don't have the right equipment prepped, bosses will most likely kill Leona, because over time, bosses' DPS checks will get more oppressive, and having extra durability will lead to your unlikely demise. So with that, Leona, she's going into the B tier. Briar, a champion that really does rely on what you build with. Her basic ability brings you into the closest enemy, and by dealing damage to them, you heal. The issue with this is that there are many tanky enemies that don't die right away, so they just straight up kill her before she can pull off any heal. Her ultimate shoots a hook anywhere on the map where she teleports to, and coming out of the hook, she enters a big frenzy with insane healing. This is primarily used for sustaining against mini bosses or the final boss, but if you don't have the right build, many bosses just one-shot you. With Briar, you either die in the early game or you get that one crazy build where you can AFK the entire game. For this reason, she's the first champion in the C tier. Following Briar, we have Yasuo. Yasuo is a character I really do want to love, but unlike the other characters, he has a really annoying flaw. His basic attack is really strong with the tornadoes, dealing great AoE DPS, but they're one of the first attacks when fully upgraded to cause the worst visual clutter. His tornadoes being a dark purple, and with how long they stay on the screen, it makes it hard to see what is going on. And many times you'll lose position of yourself or walk into an enemy attack getting one shot. His basic ability is just average dashing into enemies, getting a very small shield, and this might be very biased, but I do believe Yasuo has one of the worst ultimates in the game. Might not be the worst, but it's second worst. Despite its shorter cooldown timer, he puts up a temporary air wall to stop enemies from advancing, making this the only ultimate in the game that doesn't do damage. The only good purpose this has is for bosses like Briar and Aatrox, as you can use his wall to give yourself a safe zone during their projectile volley stage. Really, that's the only use I see for using his wall. It's basically just stopping ranged enemy projectiles, and because of the visual clutter and bad ults, Yasuo goes into the B tier. He would be A tier because of his high damage, but I died too much due to his visual clutter. And talking about more visual clutter, Illaoi is our next champion, But unlike Yasuo, Illaoi spawns light orange tentacles, making it easier to see around the screen. I have not lost my tracking when her nest of tentacles is formed, but unlike Yasuo, Illaoi has many other flaws that makes her worse. Illaoi is a summoner that periodically spawns tentacles that slam into her foes. Her basic ability slams her enemies up, giving her a small room to escape underneath them. Her ultimate is a giant slam that surrounds herself with many tentacles. Both of these abilities are great in outputting damage, but this is where her biggest flaw comes in. Without speed, Illaoi is really slow, and you'll often find out that during the bomb waves, there is nothing Illaoi can do in escaping the bomb enemies. Her tentacles will get one hit off on them, but they won't die, and before the tentacles' next attack, the bomb will have already exploded on Illaoi. I personally love playing Illaoi, and she's one of my favorites, but early on, it's almost impossible to get past the bomb waves without a perfect build. And despite this flaw, she isn't the best DPS out there, just slightly above Leona, which is not very good. Not having any shielding or healing abilities as a DPS tank, it just doesn't count out. You need to give her movement speed just so she can get away from her enemies. This makes Illaoi almost the weakest champ in the game, but there is one more champion worse than her. But for now, she goes into the bottom of C tier. And we're really getting into the bottom of this list with our next champion we have, and that is Riven. A champion that relies on dealing high damage to sustain herself with more shield. Her basic attack gives her a shield on the amount of damage she outputs, and her basic ability is a quick stun stack. This ability keeps her alive when you find yourself trapped between a swarm. Her ultimate is just a flurry of more rapid attacks at higher damage, which in theory gives her more shield. Riven's whole kit is just like Briar except without healing. She is shielded. Very similar abilities between the two, but unlike Briar, Riven is very suicidal early on. It is really hard to sustain with her because early on her damage is weak, so she gets no protection from attacking enemies and then they just kill her. Part of her issue is that she can only attack when she has taken enough steps, which makes her a skilled version of Briar. Skill doesn't always mean better, as you'll have to put yourself out in danger more, taking more risks before you pull off your next attack. Often, running in circles around your enemies, you have to be really close to your enemies to actually hit them. And like Briar in the endgame, she can have insane builds where she has never-ending armor. But before that stage, you'll see yourself dying a lot until that god build presents itself. And for that, Riven is a worse Briar, following right behind her in the C tier. With only 2 spots left on our tier list, we only have S tier and F tier, or D tier, as the screen shows. Aurora will be our next champion to take the spotlight as the worst champion in Swarm. Her basic attack is supposed to be magic missiles that you guide, but for some reason, I believe they are bugged. Without enabling your cursor aim, her missiles spread out in the worst directions possible, disappearing super fast and dealing no damage. Once you turn on auto aim, you can guide your missiles around much longer, hitting enemies multiple times. I think this is a bug because when you evolve her basic attack, her missiles are now guided when the cursor aim isn't enabled. And either way, her basic attack is really weak in outputting damage, even with its upgrades. After that, we have her basic ability, which is a damaging escape that makes her immune for a small period of time. A huge issue with this ability is while you're immune to damage, you can't pick up cards. So there will be many situations where you need to go into danger quickly to grab a card, realize you can't pick it up, and stay there longer. Then the enemies swarm you right when you come out of your invincibility and one-shot you. It's just a terrible mechanic in the game for Aurora, and it gets worse for Aurora too, with her ultimate being what I call the suicide button. She creates a ring trapping herself within, and she has to run into the walls to explode on the other side of the ring. But the glaring issue with her ult is right after you explode and are running into the closest wall, enemies will just hit you, and Aurora is not a tank. She's a weak mage and will often die in 2 hits. Many times I have died to this ult, and during boss fights, I have learned never to use her ult. if I want to win the match. It is the first suicide button Ryan has implemented for this champion. With every ability having a huge glaring issue, Aurora takes a spot on our list as the worst champion in this game. And going from bad, we come to the best, which is my favorite, Xayah. Xayah, I believe, is the highest damage dealing champion in the game. Her basic attack shoots out feathers that stay in the map for a decent period of time, coinciding with her basic ability that recalls her feathers back to her. The feathers stun enemies, and any XP orb that is on screen is brought to Xayah immediately. This basic ability makes Xayah the best farmer in the game for levels and for earning gold to get to your max Anima, as you'll rarely miss any gold with her. When certain mini bosses come at you like the Charger, her stunning feathers can literally save you from him, even going further into her ultimate, which resets her basic ability, also giving her a huge speed boost and invincibility as she jumps away. Her ultimate does crazy damage while also giving you an easy way out to reposition yourself when enemies trap you. Unlike Jinx, having quick stuns over speed is a much better option, as with Xayah, you will reach her end build much faster, thus dealing way more damage as the match ends. I have had matches where with Xayah I have gotten 60 mil plus damage. A quick personal tip with her: focus on projectile based weapons and passives, and her feathers will do insane damage. I love everything about Xayah and her kit. She has the better escape than Aurora, mixed in with a better DPS than Jinx. With this, our final champion, Xayah is the best champion in the game. Now, I just wanted to say thanks for watching my video if you stayed through. This is my first true attempt at a commentary, and I plan to do more stuff in the future. Not sure if I'll stick with League, as I'm trying to figure out my channel and what it'll be. But I'll be talking about my favorite games from now on. My next idea for League, or this game mode Swarm, would be just talking about the general best builds that I believe are strong, and some major misconceptions that I see happen too often when playing with others. But either way, thanks for watching, and have a nice scroll on YouTube. Peace.